speed of change I mentioned a moment ago appears to be the nature of things for GenAI for the foreseeable future. Master Sergeant Will Haskell is a senior technical program manager for the Space Force. I ask him what he sees coming for federal leaders in the next year or so.
I think, frankly, we're going to see quite a bit of rapid innovation in the next year or so, specifically in the classified regions, with the announcement of Bedrock being available to the intelligence community and the DoD in the top secret regions. Having access to serverless large language model inference like that is really kind of game changing. I run a program currently where as soon as we have access to it, we're going to switch from running our own inference on P4D instances, which are very expensive, to hitting those Bedrock endpoint, those Bedrock API endpoints, which will save us tens of thousands, if not more, dollars per month on our cloud consumption, as well as giving us access to some frontier models, specifically Claude 3.5 Sonnet, which is immensely capable, to say the least. So I would expect some really cool agentic workflows, and frankly, there's still a lot of low-hanging fruit out there that personally I would like to get after, but I gotta focus on the current effort at hand before I get to that.
What are some of the examples of what's out there that you and your colleagues across the community might be able to leverage pretty quickly?
So, for example, I run a program called Guru, or Generative Unified Retrieval Utility, that's kind of aimed at providing almost like a Bing Copilot or Perplexity AI like capability for the intelligence community, right? We have a billion different data silos out there, sometimes for good reasons, sometimes for bad reasons. But unless you know, as an analyst or a user on high side, unless you know where that data is or where that tool is, you're not going to find it. It's like trying to search on the dark web, right? So enabling folks to query a federated answer engine really, they can ask a precise question, get a precise answer, and get pointed to that source system without having to hear about it through word of mouth, or stumble upon it via our current outdated and not very useful search and data discovery applications that we have available to us.
How do you evaluate potential solutions, and how do you like to see your peers evaluate solutions to be able to get them into production and implementation as quickly as possible?
So, like from the commercial side you're talking about, not being a cybersecurity guy, a lot of times obviously they have to meet certain cybersecurity requirements.
Yes.
Luckily, I'm not involved in that process. I have many smart people on both the government side as well as the commercial side who do all of that work. For me personally, it's more about the performance and the use cases of the technology. But in order for me to get to play around with it in my region, it has to go through either some kind of cybersecurity standards.
You mentioned use cases, and what is striking to me about all of the conversations I've had here, both with government and industry people, is the government side, especially I think in NatSec and IC, has done a good job of aligning use cases to the technology instead of the technology to use cases. What do you think is driving that?
I think probably this technology is so, specifically generative AI, it's such a large leap and kind of so ubiquitous that everybody plays with ChatGPT. Everybody is kind of subconsciously developing these prompt engineering skills, whether they know it or not. And those use cases kind of just make their way into your brain, right? I'm not a program manager by trade. I'm not a software developer by trade. I'm an Intel analyst. So as soon as I saw ChatGPT back in 2022, immediately this would be incredible to use inside the skiff for a bunch of different use cases.
What's the challenge been, if any, in getting the data either prepared or into a skiff that you can use it, whether it's proprietary data, whether it's open source data, whatever?
So, like, as far as leveraging open source models, things like that, really the only problem that we've ran into, or I've ran into personally, is a lot of the some of the models have specific language in their end user agreements. For example, Meta's models strictly prohibit espionage or military use cases with the models. That's now changed, although I don't know exactly how, because it still says that in the EULA. But I know there's been announcements in the news saying that they are providing the models via industry partners, which I think is an awesome step for us. The other thing on certain leading models, particularly like dense embedders, the really good open source ones, unfortunately, are made in China. So we stay as far away from those as possible. But again, with Bedrock coming to region, I'm excited to play with Titan text embeddings and a couple other things. I'm hoping right now I believe it's just Claude 3.5 and Titan text embeddings, at least initially. I was real excited to hear about the Nova family of models. Looked up the tokens in, tokens out pricing almost immediately, and I was shocked at how inexpensive those are. So I've already started playing with those low side, hoping they make it their way into the region as well.